Well, it's a beautiful morning. We're in Woodwark Bay, which is just around the corner from Airlie Beach. And we thought we'd give you a little tour above deck. We've been doing a lot of stuff below deck, so come with me. This is Brilliant 2, a Kelly Peterson 44 built in 1978. This is us, the Smallwoods. And this is the story of our long overdue boat refit. Welcome along for the ride. This is the bow of our boat. I'm sitting here at the pulpit. You can't see the anchor because it's in the water at the moment. We've got a 20 kilo Manson Supreme, and there's a bit of a story to this. Once upon a time, there was a couple called Sharon and Julian, and they were refitting their yacht. One day, Julian went to the chandlery to go and buy some stainless screws. He came back with a 27 kilo Manson Supreme, which was the next size up, because bigger's always better, right? So we put it on while we were doing the refit. We got the boat mobile again, went out, and from that moment on, there was nothing but trouble. We managed to drag in Sid Harbour, of all places, which is one of the most sheltered anchorages in the Whitsundays. You never drag there. You go in there for a blow and you don't drag. We dragged. We managed to drag in Chance Bay in a thunderstorm, which was a story in itself. Absolute nightmare, middle of the night, of course, because all these things happen at night. That's just the way it works. So we did a bit of research into what might be going on, and I'll let Julian talk to that.
Each time we dragged, it was the complete reversal of the wind. Better off if your anchor's completely buried, which you can only do with the right size anchor. If it's too big, you won't be able to bury it with the size of your boat. So we've put the old one back on, which is a 20 kilo Manson Supreme, and haven't had any problems since. And we didn't really have any problems with it before.
I think you should go and touch some wood right now.
I am. A lot of people are using the Rockner, and it does have a very good wrap. And I think we're going to get a 25 kilo Rockner.
So the next time Julian goes to the chandlery to go and buy some stainless screws, I better look out. Anyway, on with the deck tour.
Code Zero actually mounts here. The furling drum goes here, and the halyard comes down to this point here. So we just had this piece of stainless bent up, which is really securely bolted down through the stem fitting here, and it gets everything still within the pulpit, and it works really well.
We've got our anchor chain here leading back to the Maxwell windlass.
There's 12 volt. I made this base for it out of fiberglass because we had to just raise it off the deck slightly. Works well. Foot controls. We've also got a Maxwell chain counter back in the cockpit, which is fantastic. Know exactly how much chain you're putting out, and we added the Maxwell snubber here as well. We always lock that, so you see now there's no strain on the actual windlass. So this is a 10mm short link chain, galvanized of course.
We've basically got all chain rode.
Yeah, 90 meters. All good windlasses should have an emergency means of operation if your battery was flat. This one comes with quite a sturdy aluminium bar, so that goes in there. Actually, you have to unlock this. That's the clutch, which free spools the drum. This goes in here. That's how it works basically. So you could get your chain and everything back in, even if you lose power. It'll take a long time.
It's much nicer just being able to put your foot on a button.
So this is 130% Genoa. This is still the original furler. It's a profile. The furling line runs all the way back to the cockpit. This is our snubber, which we haven't got on today. It has a chain hook on the end, and it has a rusty swivel, which I've meant to replace. It's just a 3 meter length of nylon rope. It takes a little bit of shock out of the system, but it also can deaden the sound coming up the chain. The third thing it does is takes the strain off of the windlass.
So also up here we've got our nav lights, port and starboard. We've got a timber cap rail, or tow rail as some people call it, which goes all the way around the boat, covers the hull to deck join, and which is a work in progress. We've got our bronze fair leads down here. We've actually still got our dock lines on because we've only come around the corner. In fact, when we do short sails, we're a bit lazy. We tend to just leave these on the boat. You shouldn't really. You should put them away. Just here is the forward fitting for the Spinnaker pole. This is up at the moment because we're using it as part of our flopper stopper tackle. Another really nice feature about this boat is this solid stainless rail. You always feel really secure. You've got something to hang on to. It's just brilliant. Highly recommend them. I wouldn't want to go to sea without one anymore. This is our inner forestay, and this is where we run our staysail. You can see the staysail up here in its bag. It's got a little soft shackle made for us by a friend, which is holding it up here, and it just comes out of the bag. The bag can stay on the deck or go into our little deck bag back there, but this is all hanked on, so that means we've got a combination of a roller furling headsail and a hanked on staysail. And moving aft, we've got a deck bag here, which is where all our ropes and the flopper stopper is contained when we're not using it. Our boat hook tends to live down here on the deck. This is what we use for picking up moorings, retrieving lost hats, those sorts of things. The flopper stopper, of course, is out. We've already covered this wonderful contraption off in another video. Moving aft again. Here I am at the mast. Might get Julian to talk about the mast configuration.
It's a keel stepped mast, meaning the mast goes all the way down through the boat and sits on top of the keel. It's a simple arrangement, as simple as it gets really. A lot of boats have all their halyards etc. running back into the cockpit. With this boat, it's all at the mast. I'll just open this bag. This is the sail bag for the main. Bit of view there. The mast has got four winches on it. And we keep our winch handles down here, little rubber pockets. I've seen people having a bit of trouble with their mast boots at the bottom. They have to be rubber because there's always going to be a bit of movement between the mast and the deck, and you've got to stop the rain going in. These actually come from a hardware store, and they're a roofing gasket for putting around pipes and chimneys. This one doesn't have a join in it because we put this on while the mast was off. But if your mast is on and you want to put one of these off, you've got to have a flange here at the bottom, and you'll have to cut it and then wrap it around and rejoin it. But yeah, look in your plumbing supplies in the roofing section, and these are designed to last a long time in the sun. We got very simple boom vang here, nothing telescopic or anything like that. It's just old school. There's the Cunningham eye for when you're reefing, you're pulling the sail down or the cringle down to lock it off. This boat's got slab reefing. We've only got 2 reefing points in this mainsail, but they're both very deep. So we've got one reefing line for each reefing point, and they come in here. Basically you can use this winch here to just crank it down if it's blowing hard, so the reef comes down and just locks in with these jammers here. We've got a preventer here just to avoid any accidental jibes. So we just tie it down to one of the deck fittings, a cleat or something. So this is a fiberglass deck box which is original. We've repainted it and stuff, and there's a lawn sprinkler in here which we haven't been using lately because the grass has died. When we got our staysail up, the sheets lead in through, inside the deck. So we've got a block here, and these cars slide backwards and forwards. You never really have to move them. The angle always stays the same. So the sheet comes back through this block and then onto this forward winch here, whilst you can still use the primary winch back here for the genoa. So you can have the genoa and the staysail up at the same time if you want, because the sheets go to 2 separate winches. These are our running backstays, and they support the mast at the second spreaders.
We're a double spreader mast.
So up there is our radar scanner, our radar reflector. We've got our wind instruments up there too. VHF antenna.
We've got a few rod holders on the boat. We've got one up here. These are nice all stainless steel units. They're very strong, and they just clamp onto the rail. And we've got a couple more, or 3 more, at the aft end of the boat. and it's good to have it here because you spend most of the time in the cockpit. Easy access to the side of the boat.
And you're standing right next to our gates. We've got one port, one starboard.
Wooden gate, dinghy comes alongside and we jump out there. It's a bit easier than going over the stern. But we do have a ladder back there as well. If we're swimming off the boat, climb up the ladder.
We're in the cockpit, which we've covered off before, but just for the sake of being thorough, I'll just run through the basics. Here are all our instruments on this aft side of the wave break. So we've got our 2 plotters. We're currently using one as a depth sounder and one as the chart plotter itself. So this has got our Navionics software on it. That's what we use to navigate with. Obviously we have paper charts as well, which is not only a legal requirement, but also just a very sensible thing to do. And we don't tend to do it so much in our home cruising grounds, our backyard, just when we're weekend sailing or holiday sailing or anything. But if we go anywhere of any distance, we always mark our positions on the paper chart as well as using the chart plotter. It's just a safety thing, and it's fun, and it's really good to keep your navigation skills up. Excuse me. Here we've got our gauges, so engine temperature, oil, switch for the lights, cockpit lights, autopilot controls, one of our network quad instruments which we were using as a depth sounder, which is defunct and needs replacing, wind instruments which show us the direction and speed, 0. Road counter, which shows you how much anchor chain we've got out. We're currently anchored in 6 meters now with the state of the tide, and we've got 40 meters of chain out. We usually try to go with a scope of about a minimum of 4 to 1. Lately we've been going a lot more since we had those disasters with the old anchor. We still haven't quite calmed our nerves from that, and so we'll go anywhere from 5 to 1, sometimes 6 to 1. We'll be fine soon. And our engine revs are shown on there. We've got the ship's bell here. That's how you know if it's rough. And our jam cleats here. This is another winch here. At the moment, all our winches are completely manual. While we're both still relatively young and fit, we can manage that. And again, it's good exercise. It's part of what keeps you young and fit. But it would be nice to have the choice of at least one electric winch, I think. And I think we've covered these off before, but I'll just mention them again. So these are our sheet bags. We have one sheet bag forward, one aft, and this is where the lines run back to. And sometimes they even get used for hats and shirts. Moving aft through the cockpit, obviously this is all an area that we've already renovated. We've got our binnacle compass right here. We don't have any of those, any instruments actually at the helm. They're all slightly forward. This is where the helmsperson sits, but also this is where we store our propane tanks. Back here we've got our life raft. I'm standing here next to 2 of our 7 solar panels. We've got 1 kilowatt of solar altogether, haven't we? The advantage of having them on the rail like this is we've got them on a swivel system. So basically you can angle these to the sun. The ones on the davits we don't have the capacity to do that with, but look, they're higher up than just about anything else, and so it's not quite as important to be able to angle them as it is these ones.
This is our main sheet. It goes through quite a few blocks. There's a fair old bit of pressure up there when it's blowing hard, so we've got like a 3 or 4 to 1 purchase. The winch is well inside the cockpit, so you don't have to get wet, you don't have to come out here. It's mounted to a traveller.
And if we wanted to actually maximise our sail trim, we could remove this panel here and make use of the traveller. Yeah. This is our davit arrangement. This is Pepe's toilet. We have our cat, our ship's cat on board, and this is where he does his ablutions.
And he usually tries to spread as much of it over the rest of the boat as possible.
In his defence, he's old and he's not really in charge of all his faculties anymore. It happens
Like
to
me.
the best of us. I'll just go through this very briefly because we have done it before. Obviously, again, stainless rail coming all the way down the aft. We've got the boarding ladder here, which this is how you take that on and off. Anode there. This is our man overboard gear. Solar shower, we don't have this hung up here all the time, it's just up here drying out. These are the 3 200-watt solar panels. This actually creates another little storage area, so we've got fishing rods up here and beach chairs. The primary purpose of our davits, of course, is to hang the tender from. Julian designed it. It was made locally by Alec and his team at Airlie Welding, and yeah, works great for us. We've got an old board here that was used for putting the outboard motor on. Dustbin at the back helps us with our rubbish capacity, and then the starboard side 100-watt swivel solar panels. And that, my friends, is a tour of Brilliant 2 above deck. Well, there's a tiny bit of breeze, so time to go sailing. Here comes Julian with the Code 0.
The beauty of this is you can actually put it up on the furler, ready for use. Okay, I've done this for a while. Let's see how it goes. So this is the furler part. Clips onto our shackle there. Notice the shackle's moused, you don't want that coming undone. That's all good. That's the furling line, you run that back to the cockpit. I run these along outside the stays, just sort of keeps them out of the way. We run the end of the furler through this, and you've got to keep it under tension, otherwise it can get wrapped up there. So we use a bungee on the end of it. This is a snatch block, a very old one, but it'll do for this job. We won't be using this car, so I'm just going to run it back and use it as something to tie the bungee off to. You can adjust the tension on it. There'll be a bit more tension goes on that when we actually put the sail up. Okay, so we're ready to hoist the furled sail up to the masthead. Now, you want a spinnaker halyard. This one right here. Swivel at the top here, which allows the whole thing to rotate and furl. Basically with these Code Zeros, the more into the wind you go, the tighter the luff needs to be. Downwind, you slacken the luff so that it becomes a fuller sail. So that's set up on the furler, and we've just got to run the sheet to the back of the boat and the primary winch, and just make sure the tension's right on the furling lines. We've had the whole thing twist up when it wasn't, so we're just going to make sure of those things, and it all looks good.
Julian's just feeding the sheet around the outside of absolutely everything. We'll bring the spinnaker pole in and put the forward end down on the deck, but we're not going to put it away completely because we'll probably need it at the next place. Now we can get going and see if we've got the right sort of wind to use it. Is to put the main out. So Julian is going to go up to the mast and do that. Well, the code 0 is out. There was a bit of jiggery pokery getting it unfurled right at the very top, but we haven't had it out for ages. In fact, this is only what, the 3rd time we've used it, is that right?
Yeah, I think so. We should use it more.
Pretty good.
Around about 6 knots an hour when we're doing 2.5.
And we worked out it was going to take us 7 hours to cross the passage, the Whitsunday Passage, at that speed.
You know what, we're doing almost wind speed, because if it's 6 knots apparent, we're doing 2.3 knots, so the true wind is only about 4 knots.
Sailing along. How is the Serenity, peeps? No engine noise, nothing, just sound of the water trickling past the hull. It's quite fabulous, really.
Here we are. The wind's 3 knots. We're doing about 2. And we're about 60 degrees off the wind. We love our almond sails code 0.
There you go. A little external furler in action.
Well, we made it over to Langford Island and we had a lovely night here last night. It's absolutely beautiful day, as you can probably see. Very sunny, which is why we've just installed another upgrade to our cockpit. These are our new shade sides, which have been made for us by Almond Sails Whitsunday, who've done all our canvas work in here. And what they've done is just duplicated the clears that we've already got, but with a shade mesh, and it's fabulous. So this side of the cockpit was really super sunny earlier, a little bit hot to sit in, and now look at it, voila. Anyway, it is such a beautiful day that we are going to head ashore. We're going to go over to the sand spit over there and probably take a walk up to the little lookout. And
I'm not. I'm going to go look for some creatures with Dad.